Begin the current Daf, Mesech Kesuvos Daf Chavzayin. Begin on the second line down at the top of the Amud. But first we just finish off a discussion that we started in the previous Daf, which is just a different version of the Gemara, whether it be a question or supporting the teaching of Rabbah from the previous Daf, qualifying the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah was continuing the theme regarding that of Shvuya, or captive woman, what the halacha is regarding believing if she was nitma or not. So on that we had a qualification on that teaching, and that the Gemara is just going to bring another version of that. Shiur corresponds to today's Daf. Some of the things discussed in today's Daf are, we're beginning with the next Mishnah on this Daf, which is if there's a city that was conquered with some type of forces of troops, so there's concern regarding that maybe there was nus ba'onis, and if a woman was raped, could the kahanas that are found over there are puzzle. Which that relates also to baleshes, which is something similar regarding people that also come to the city, that we have a concern regarding yain nesach, regarding the open wines, and the Edom that are eligible to testify for Isha Kashu Karkam, that who is believed to say that the woman was not nitma, which that brings up a discussion regarding Shifcha Dida, her own maidservant. There's a concern that Liba Gaspa Shefchasa, that there's a different type of relationship, a woman with her maidservant, depending if she would be believed or not. Some of the ideas discussed in today's about when a woman that's not married to a kohen, if she's mizana willingly, then she's been into her husband. But there's a unique halacha regarding Eshet Kohen Shenenza, the wife of a kohen. If she, even if she was forced to, she's asur labala. Masech Levitum is the halacha that if the person is talking innocently, not with the intention of saying testimony, then it's acceptable even when they're apostle aides. So begin the current Daf Chavzayin, second line down at the top of the Amud. Again, it's just finishing off what we said from the previous Daf, but Ikeda Adamida, those that say that a different version. The way it was said on the previous Amud was in the form of a question. And here the Gemara is going to say it as a support. Amar Rava says, Afana Namatinina, that we also learned this Mishnah, which is, meaning on the first version we had a teaching from Rab that said that we didn't learn this halacha of our Mishnah, that if a woman was taken because of monetary reason that she permitted to her husband, we said that was only if Yad Yisrael Tekiv, only if the Jewish people have the power over the non-Jews. We said if the non-Jews have power over themselves, then we said even for monetary reasons they can be forbidden to their husbands. So in the first version there was a question that Rav had asked from the Mishnah said this idiot, that regarding what we see that seemingly not like this teaching of Rav. And the Gemara had to say that no, it's not just by hudana in, like which are the top words on this Amid, nech b'shaloi. No, the same thing would be even nech b'shaloi, but ma'isrei kachoi. And now the Gemara says in the different version, it just says Amid Rabba Afananam Tinina. According to this version, he's coming to support as follows. The Mishnah says in India is Hey Rabbi Yisrael Kohen Rabbi Zachar ben Akatzav Abbas Yisrael regarding a Jewish woman Shehudana ba'Ashkelon, where she was taken because of a pledge, because of money that was owed in Ashkelon. And her family members distanced her because, the non-Jews probably defiled her. But the witnesses that testified regarding her, no, she was never secluded with them, she never became defiled. So the sages said to the family, look, if you believe, again, this is a repetition of what we said from the previous Daf, it's just that the final point is going to be trying to support instead of asking. If you believe that she was taken as a pledge, so then believe the witnesses that she was not secluded and she was not defiled. If you don't believe them that she was not secluded and not defiled, then don't believe them that she was taken as a pledge at all in the first place. Okay, that's what the Mishnah says. But says the Gemara, this is Rav trying to support the teaching of Rav, this story about Ashkelon, that was for monetary reasons that she was taken. But Taima, the reason that the reason why she's going to be muteres is because witnesses are testifying that she was not nisted or not netlo. But if witnesses did not testify, then she would not be permitted. My love, and this is where it differs from the first version. Isn't it that loy shno, it doesn't make a difference, hurana, that because she was taken as a pledge, v'loy shno nech b'sha, doesn't make a difference if she was taken as imprisonment, doesn't make a difference. We see that when the non-Jews have their power over the Jews, which Rashi had said on the bottom of the previous Amud, that First of all, Ashkelon was in Eretz Palestine, so that's the non-Jews in control. Also, the Jewish people already gone to Gullus. So you see that without the Eidim, she'd be forbidden. That's exactly like Rav's teaching, that although we said in the Mishnah that Al-Yidei Mom, if a woman was taken for monetary reasons, she's Muteres Labalo. Oh, that was only if the Yisrael are Tekif al Abdikachavim. But when the Abdikachavim are Tekif al Atzman, when they're in control, even for monetary reasons, they need to follow the woman. That's exactly what we see in the Mishnah Masechet Zidius. Again, it's not like the first version I wanted to say that no, it's only about Hurana, but in Nechbasha we wouldn't say that. No, this version assumes that it's the same thing. That says the Gemara, Loi, it's the inverse of the first version. No, Hura, no Shani, that taken as a pledge is different, and therefore there's no Raya. There you could say that there was what they took with that intention of that now you're in our control. In contrast to Nechbasha, where it's just imprisonment. It's not because like we own you. It's not like you didn't pay up so we could do whatever we want with you. And therefore it's not a raya. Maybe by Nechbasha, actually the halacha would be maybe like the halacha of our Mishnah, that actually she would be muteres labalis. You don't have a raya for the teaching of Rab. Could be just specifically by Hurana and not by Nechbasha. That's a second version. Now, a third version of this conversation is that actually ikadadami la mirma. Now those who don't have this opening qualifier that we had in the Gemara, the first words on the Gemara in the previous Amid, after we finished the Mishnah of Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, it wasn't that he was coming to explain the Mishnah in a terminology as we had in the first version of Lo Shanu, we didn't learn. No, actually there was a contradiction that was posed between our Mishnah and the Mishnah Masechet Zidius, one on the other. On that stira, Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak was explaining to differentiate that it's not a difficulty because it depends if it's Yad Yisrael Tekif, if the Jews are in control, or if the Yad Kacham Tekif, or the non-Jews are in control, as follows. Now, we learned in our Mishnah that Al-Yidei Mom, if a woman was taken and imprisoned for monetary reasons, we said in our Mishnah, we only said it's for capital punishment, that then they take the wife and they pillage everything and they rape and they do all these different things, but for monetary reasons, no, she permit it to her husband. For the minu, but there's a contradiction from Mishnah Masechet Zidius. The Mishnah says, "Hey, Rabbi Yosef b'chulu," which we quoted this already 2 times already. This Mishnah Zidius. Now, for Ashkelon, which is where that story was, the Al-Yidei Mama, which is for monetary reasons, B'kotani Taima the Eidamid Maisa. Now, the Mishnah there is indicating that the only reason why she's permitted to her husband because witnesses are saying she was not Nistara, not Nitma, Ha'ein Eidamid Maisa, but if witnesses were not testifying, Loi, she would be not permitted, she'd be forbidden. What do you mean? It's for monetary reasons. And you said in that Mishnah, for monetary reasons, she would be permitted. Madam Mishali, that's what he answered him. It's not difficult. Khan, our Mishnah is talking about that is when the Jews are in control. The Jews are in control and the non-Jew takes in the prisons for monetary reasons, then she's going to be mutarlas. Khan, the Mishnah said this idiot is shiyad abdikachavim tekiv al asman. And when the non-Jews are in control. So we had 3 different versions of this conversation. Either as a loy shanu, he comes to qualify our teaching of our Mishnah, and then we had either a question from Masechet Zidius that seems to indicate that actually no nechbasha, she's not going to be forbidden, not even though it's yad adikam tekiv al asman. Then we said no, it's the same thing as horana. Second version was saying as a support. Yeah, Hurana Nechbasha is the same thing, whether she's taken because of that they owe money or because of imprisonment, it's all the same thing, and the Gemara says no, it's different. Well, the third version is that actually it was a contradiction we asked, and then he qualified based on that and said, well, here we're talking about Yad Yisrael Tekifa, and the Mishnah Idiyah says Yad Abdikacham Tekifa Alasma. Now we said in the Mishnah, however, if it's Al Yidei Nefashis, if the woman was taken in the prison because of capital punishment, Asura b'chulu, then she's forbidden to her husband, which the Gemara qualifies. Amar Rabbi says Kagoy Noshe and the Gir says the Ganavi, like the wives of the thieves, who their husbands are hung, and the government, what they do is, maybe as a deterrent or as a punishment, they have that the house and the wife of this thief is hefker, and anyone can do whatever they want to do. So therefore, it was for capital punishment. That wife is going to be violated and whatnot. So therefore, even if, let's say, her husband's not home, he gets away, she's going to be forbidden to her husband. But Levi Amar, he disagrees. He says, no, it's specifically going to Ishta Shel Ben Dunoi, like the wife of Ben Dunoi. Who was his Ben Dunoi? Say he was a murderer. His name was Elazar, as the Gemara says in Seidah Memzayim at Aleph. Such a type of a person, his wife is forbidden, but the wife of a regular thief who steals money, that they wouldn't be mafker his wife, and then you wouldn't have this qualification that was ordained the fashion satur labalat. Specifically, this murderer, this guy who he was on the top 10 at the America's Most Wanted, whatever. That's the type of guy, but a regular thief wouldn't have that qualification. Now we have machlekes, however. Chizki says husha gama nigma din larig. But it's only if, when we say capital punishment, if the verdict had already been handed down that he has to be hung, then the wife is going to be hefker and they're going to do whatever they want. Rabbi says no, even if the verdict wasn't handed down, b'chlal, if you let's say holy command the Amar of Nashid Dikanovi, the wives of the thieves who if they catch and they hang them, already if they imprison the wife, already they're going to treat her in the way of hefker and they're going to be ma'anisar, and then she's going to be forbidden. Again, like we said, because maybe she's going to be do it lorotzen because of afraid of what they're going to do to her. Now we continue to look at the next Mishnah. Continue on this theme regarding the woman who is violated, similar to the halacha of the shvuya. So here they're not actually captive, but they're actually captive in a more passive way. As follows, the Mishnah says, "Irshe kavshu karka." If there's a city that was conquered by a troops, so kol kahana shenimtzu b'toicha, any woman who's married to a kohen that's in that city, sulas, she should have been to her husband. Why? So as we said, because the Eish's kohen, whoever kohen is asura ba'onis, even if she was raped, and we assume that these people that they're coming and conquer the city, that they're going to pillage, they're going to rape, and therefore the wives of the kohen are forbidden to their husbands. Now, if they have witnesses that they were not nivulu, then even if it's a slave or a maidservant, they are believed to say and testify that nothing happened to her. But this is what we said many times. We just didn't reference it, and here the Mishnah says explicitly: a person not believe regarding themselves. Say, well, nothing happened to me. No, you're not believing. Anyone else, whether Eved or Shivcha, we're going to trust them, but the person themselves will not be trusted. Now, the Gemara asks a contradiction with the Minna from the Mishnah says it's the way the Zar. Mishnah says baleshes, which is like the troops, because the word baleshes, as Rebbe brings in the Gil and the Shas, possibly chapis, bereshes is the targum ubolash. It means to seek all the treasures, the hidden treasures. So they come here and they try to find everything. They ransack everything. If they come to the city. So it says the Mishnah by Zor depends what's the time period that they're coming. If it's b'shas shalom, if it's at a peaceful time, so then chavias b'suchos, any open barrel is going to be asur, is going to be forbidden because of yayin nesach. Stumais, the closed barrels, is going to be mutaras, is going to be permitted because it's closed. Obviously, they didn't go ahead and push their hands in and do all their idolatry. B'shas milchama, at a wartime, elu ve'elu mutaras. Whether it's the closed barrels of wine, even the open barrels of wine, they're going to be permitted. Why? There's no time to do libations over here. You're running from the scuds or whatever it is, or whatever these things that are flying and projections are busy. So the question that the Gemara is asking essentially is, why do we say in the Mishnah that when there's a city that's being conquered, that all the kahanas that are found inside are going to be puzzled? Why? Because the soldiers are raping. What do you mean? There's no time to do any of these things. These people are running for their lives. They're fighting a war. Just like you see that the yayin nesach, they love doing this yayin nesach thing. They're not doing even the open barrels. So what's the difference? So on that, Amr Madi, he says that yes, livel yesh penai. That to be boiled, there's time because their yitzar is very strong. L'nasachem penai. But to do nisach, that is no time. So therefore, it's not a contradiction because they're for different desires. The temples are not going to be closed, but to rape that they have time. Another approach, Rabbi Yitzchak bar Elazar Mishmei Techizkiya Amar, he says, no, the truth is even by biyah that sometimes the women will be permitted, as you see from the Mishnah says about the Zar. So how do we explain? How do we resolve the contradiction that our Mishnah says they're going to be forbidden? So it depends. Khan, in the Mishnah by the Zar, that we said that they're going to be permitted, like you see the open barrels are permitted, so hence the same thing should be the women, is Bekarkim Shal Isa Malchus, is talking about the troops of that same country, from that same government. They don't want to destroy the members of their own cities. So essentially, like Rashi explains, when they conquer a city near their country, maybe by the Black Sea or whatever it is, so they protect it because they want to use it to tax them and to use them. So they wouldn't be raping the women of that town. Khan over here, where they're going to be forbidden, like in our Mishnah, is Bekarkim Shal Malchus Acheres. It's talking about the troops of a different country that they just coming, they're pillaging and they're raping. So then that we're going to say they're going to be forbidden. So it depends. Depends if it's the if it's the army of a foreign country or of this country, and therefore that will resolve the contradiction. Says the Gemara, Shaloisa Malchus Nami, but even, and this is contested over here how to translate, this is how Rashi says, Taisus disagrees in a lot of these points over here, but so the question is, Shaloisa Malchus Nami, even from that same country, the troops from that country, it's not possible that not one of the soldiers are going to run out of their camp and go on a pillage and rape women. So essentially, the way from Rashi sounds like the Gemara's question is that they should be usher, because even if most of them don't want to do such a thing, but the soldiers, they get in these crazed types of headspace, and he's going to go out and do this to the women. So why are you saying that they can be permitted? Explain the Mishnah by the Zar. Some of you in the Mishnah, he says, we're talking about kishemishmoros. There are places that they appoint guards, that the king appoints, so that no one should harm any people of the city, that are rayas u'mizu. They see each other. So the sentries are making sure that none of the soldiers, go AWOL and just go ahead and rape the women. Says the Gemara, it's not possible that they don't doze off a little bit, the guards, and then the private gets off and he does his thing. So Rabbi Levi says, no, we're talking about where they placed around the whole city that they conquered a shashilta, which is iron chains, so that it should make noise if someone that's running stumbles on those chains. The kalba, and dogs that will scream. The gavza, and there are sticks and protrusions and thorns that people will get stuck on, but like barbed wire fences or something. Like the avza and geese, again, these will make a noise, will sound alarms, so therefore that will make sure that no one's going to evade the security of the guards and infiltrate the city and rape any of the women. So therefore that's why we're saying that if it's from that same country, and even if there's going to be some privates that will want to go out and do some harm, they surround the city and make sure that no one's going to do such a thing. And therefore, again, that was a resolution of the contradiction between our Mishnah and Rabbi Zara, that it depends if it's from that country or from a different country. Now, the Gemara qualifies that what we just mentioned as a machlekes. Amar Rabbi Bazav, the pligi by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Rabban. Machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and the rabbi. Schadama once says, Kan, the Mishnah by the Zara is Bekardim Shaloisa Malchus, like we just answered. That's in the troops of that country, so they won't harm the women. So they're just like the open battles, they're not going to do it with the Zara. So too here that we're saying that they're not going to do anything to the women. But Khan over here in the Mishnah is Bekarkim Shal Malchus Acheres. We're talking about from a different country, and they're really kash le'midi. If there's no difficulty, meaning they're not concerned. Meaning that's all they said for the answer, and they're not concerned that maybe one of the soldiers are going to go on his own and be boiled, because it's not a hefker situation, and that's where he leaves it. One of these opinions, either Rabbi Yehuda or Rabban. But the other opinion had all these questions that we asked. So wait a second, maybe one of the soldiers are going to go AWOL, and maybe even though there's guards, maybe one of them they'll fall asleep, and then we have to give a mashal. You have to answer. And then we have to answer that we surround the city with iron chains and the dogs and the geese and the sticks and the. So again, just explaining that we answered. One opinion held it was a question. And if you have to give these answers, other opinion held it's not a question, no, we're not concerned, it's not a hefker situation, if we don't have to surround the town with chains and all these different things, because the mice is from the same country, and they're not going to do anything to the women of the town. Now, related to the halacha of the Mishnah, he says, he says, although we said in our Mishnah, that all the women that are married to Kahanim in that town are all forbidden to their husbands, because we're assuming that these soldiers are going to come and violate the women, which they're asurs labala. But if there was one cave in that town, matzelas al kahana kul, it saves all the wives of the kahana. because there's one place that they were able to lock themselves in. So if there's one of these places, one of these bunkers, all the women are permitted. Now, we had a question. What's if ein machzikes illa achas? What if that chamber has room for one person? Now, what's the halacha? What's the question? The Gemara explains. I mean, do we say kol chada b'chada, every single woman? I know, maybe she's the one. Each one, we can't say that she's forbidden, because the whole thing is a chashash as it is. So, do you say each one, maybe she's the one? Maybe we don't say that. How can we say each one's the one when there's only room for one? So the Gemara says, wait a second. How can you say that we wouldn't say each one maybe the one? How is it any different than the Mishnah Mesechtes Tyrus? Mishnah says an interesting case. Mishnei Shavilu. If there's two paths, and someone's coming to ask regarding himself and his friend, which Rabbi Yossi says that they're going to be tamei, as we're going to see right now. So here also essentially the Gemara is asking, you should say that all of them are going to be, if you're going to say for all of them that they're going to be permitted at the same time, that they should be tamei, as the Gemara explains. If you have a path, two paths, echad tamei, one path has a grave that goes along the entire width of this path, v'echad tar, and one path is tar. Now we don't know which one is tamei, but we know that one of these two paths are tamei. And so a person went through one of the paths, and they were tahar, meaning he went and he engaged in tires, he touched tires. And then his other friend, he went in the second path and he also touched tires. So we have the following opinion. Rabbi Shloimy says, if each one went on his own to ask his own shayla, halach is tires, they're going to be tar. Why? Because each and every one of them, when he comes in front of us and he asks us the question, we suspend it in the permitted way to say it's tar, because this is what's classically known as Safek Tameh B'Shus Rabba. When you have a doubtful Tameh in the public domain, because we learn from Saitas, we learn the Safek Tameh B'Shus Yachad is Tameh, because the Saita is secluded and the Pasuk says Tameh, but if it's a B'Shus Rabba, it's going to be tar. Here, the Safek is a Tameh B'Shus Rabba, so the Safek can be tar. But that's if they come on their own, independently. Shneim Ka'achas, let's say they both come together as one, well then Tameis, they're going to be Tameh, because how could you say you're both tar? One of them is for sure when in the Tameh path. So if they come separately, they can be tar. If they come together as one, they can be tar. Rabbi Shloimy says, no, Benkach or Benkach Tamein. He says, either way, whether they came separately or together, they're going to be tar. Now that's the simple reading of that Mishnah Taras. But for Amar Rava, he says Rabbi Yochanan, and he qualified, and he says, if they're coming to ask Bevas Achas, if they're coming to ask together as one, they got called to me. I won't agree with Tommy. You can't say they're both tar. For sure, one of them is Tommy. Together, you're both coming. I can't, as the Rav, tell you that you're both tar. For sure, one of them is Tommy. If they're coming one after the other, not at the same time, they got called tar. I was going to agree that they're tar because that's a classic subject to Mishra Sarabim. That they can be tar, even though you're the other one. Doesn't make a difference. Each one's asking an independent question. One guy's coming, he's asking for himself and for his friend. So usually, someone calls and asks for his friend, it means himself. But here he's coming asking for himself, and he's asking for his friend. That is the machlokes, as the Gemara explained. Since you're asking for yourself and your friend, it's essentially the same thing as both you asking at the same time, which would make it therefore tamei, because you can't say tar at the same time. Whereas he compares it to one after the other, because ultimately it's not two people coming at the same time. He's asking for him as his friend, so therefore you could say, okay, he's not here, and therefore each one would be considered independent.
Did you touch the same taharas?
Right, so Taisus discusses, no, Taisus says, no, it's two different taharas. Okay. Taisus says even more than that. He says that even if you're going to say that when they come independent and you're going to say it's tar, one person shouldn't eat it because the imkain yochel ba'al tumah. That's what Taisus brings from the Gemara Shavuos.
Obviously, the same taharas.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, we're talking about different types. So, and this is where Rashi explains the Gemara that's asking specifically according to one Tana, but says the Gemara, "V'hachin nami sahir also," meaning that's the halacha we saw regarding that of the two shvilim, what's called the two paths. But also says that our Gemara, in our case that we're discussing over here, regarding the cave that has room for one woman, ki even the shavel l'kulu. since you're permitting all the women, all the wives of Kahanim, this is like one shaila that we have. Kivas achas dami. It's like at one time, weird. Because since you have a machlekes, this is what Rashi says, a machlekes of Rabbi Yossi. We know, as the Gemara tells us in the Eruvin Daf Membav, that halach is Rabbi Yossi. So essentially we go like Rabbi Yossi. So therefore, Rabbi Yossi said when the shaila is asked at the same time, the halach is that they're going to be tummy. So therefore, what's Rabbi Yirmiyah's shaila that he's asking that are they going to be tummy, are they going to be tar? How could you say they're going to be tar? You're asking, there's room for one. We know for sure the rest are tummy. We just don't know who. I mean, at least we're suspecting. That's what they was going to answer. But there's only room for one. So just like a path, one was tummy, one was tar. If they're asking at the same time, you're going to say the all tummy. I can't say you're tahar. So over here, what was Rabbi Yirmiyah entertaining to say? That maybe each one we're going to say that she's the one, but it's a shaila that's being asked at the same time. It's like a love al chaveroi, because we want to know, okay, the Rabban were coming into town after this whole pogrom, and they're coming in, they're saying this whole thing, so of course it's going to be tummy. So Gemara says, no, hachi hashtu, can you compare the two cases? Hasan by the two paths, vade ikar tumah. This is a definitive tumah, one of these paths, we just don't know which one. I can't say you're both tar when you went on the right path and you went on the left path, for sure one of you are tummy. But hoch over here, by the women of the city, me, Yemer did me? Who said that they were tummy? We're suspecting we can't treat them with the chazakah that they're permitted to their husbands because definitely there's a suspicion. We don't know for sure that they were tummy, and therefore it is possible, and therefore we didn't resolve the question, it is possible that maybe you would say in each one, maybe she's the one that was in the ma'ara, and therefore maybe she'd be permitted. A similar type of a question, very Rashi. Rashi has the following question. Let's say the woman says, Lo nichbeis. She says, I want you to know, I was not the one that took cover in the bunker, but I was not defiled. Ma, what's the halacha? So what's the question? Me and Rindu says, Mali l'shakim. She has a migui. If she wanted to, she could have said, nichbeisi. I was in the chamber, I was in the cave. So why should I lie? Believe me when I'm saying, Leinit Macy. Or maybe we don't say Mal Shakar. So the Gemara actually explains and asks it as a question that why is it any different than the story with that person? What was the story? The Agar Lechamer Lechaber. So he rented his donkey to his friend. And Amalei stipulated, he said, look, I don't want you to go on the path of Nahar Pekod. That's the condition that I'm renting you this donkey. Why? Because they can maya. There's water over there, and you might get stuck in the water. Some type of a thing might happen. You might get flooded. I don't want you to go on that path. I want you to go on the path of nourish. There's no water. Okay. He didn't listen. It's a shorter way. It was a quicker way. He went in the path of Nahar Pekod. And the donkey died. So this came from the Rabba Amalei. So the renter said, look, I want you to know, yes. I did go on the path of Nahar Pekod, but there was no water. So it's not like I was negligent. The whole concern of not going where there was the negligence and therefore I should be liable. I did go there, but there was no water. So my Rabbi said, why should I lie? Meaning, if he wanted to, he could have said he went the other path. So the fact that he said I went on that path, I'm believed to say that there was no water and therefore I'm not negligent. But Abaye said to Rabbi, no. To say a miga, why should I lie? In contradiction of witnesses, meaning, well, which witnesses? So Rashi says, what's called anan sahadi. We testify. Is that every moment we know there is water over there. So the fact that he's saying, no, I did go there, but there was no water there, but I should not be negligent, is a mal shaka b'mokim egin. You're contradicting witnesses. We all know there's always water over there. Lo yamrinan. We don't say such a migui, and therefore we don't believe you, and therefore you're going to be negligent. Oh, so therefore, that should answer Rav Ashi's question. No, you're not going to say mal l'shaka. Why are you not going to say mal l'shaka? Because we have Eidim who are saying that if you were not in the machbesha, if you were not in the cave, in the chamber, then you were raped. So no, we're not going to believe you by saying, mal l'shaka, I could have said I was nichbesi. Yeah, you would have been nichbesi, yeah, one thing. But if you're not nichbesi, your migu is going connected Eidim that say that you were violated. So therefore, what's his question? Of course, she's not going to believe. So the Gemara, no, it's not true. You could bear the case like we said regarding the previous question. Hasim over there, there definitively have witnesses that there are always water. That's called non-sahabi. So since there's witnesses that for sure there was water, no. So that's obviously you can't say amal l'shaka because that's being contradicted by witnesses. Over here, you think for sure she was defiled? At the most, it's chashoshu. It's a suspicion that we have. We're concerned. But in the place of concern, then possibly you could say amrina that we would say amal l'shaka. If it's not a question, not an answer. We didn't resolve the question. Rav Ashi could be that you would say amal l'shaka. It's not definitively that you cannot say. It's not definitively amal l'shaka mokum edim. There's no edim that she was nenas. It's a chashash, and therefore maybe you would say amal l'shaka, unlike the case of the renter who went in the orcha of Nahabakay. We said in the Mishnah that if yes edim, if there are witnesses that she was not defiled, even a maidservant or a slave, then she's believed to say that even though these individuals generally pasla edis, doesn't make a difference, that they're going to believe that nothing happened to her. Now, the inference, what it sounds like, is that it sounds like any shifra, even her own maidservant, would be believed to say that my mistress, nothing happened to her, she wasn't violated in the whole siege that was on the town. Problem is a bit of meaning. Seems to be contradicting the Mishnah Masechtas Gittin. Mishnah there is discussing regarding a shchimra. Shchimra is a person on his deathbed that he writes and he gives a get to his wife on the condition that if he dies, he wants it to be a get retroactively. Why? Why can't she just be permitted when he dies? Because he doesn't want to have to go through the whole chalitza procedure with his brother because he didn't have any children. So that says the Mishnah over there, okay. But after he writes his get, he's not going to be secluded with her because he might have be with her. And the way Rashi explains it is going to be a get yashan. Or get yashan, Mishnah teaches that Beis Hillel says it's forbidden to release a woman with a get yashan. Now, what's a get yashan? If he was secluded with her after he wrote the get, why? Why does that make it a get yashan? What do you mean, an old get that becomes invalidated because he was meyachid with her after he wrote the get? The reason is because there's a concern that maybe if he's meyachid with her, he's going to be intimate with her. Maybe she's going to have a child. Now, although she was still his wife, but they're going to say that the get was before the son, and therefore comes that he's illegitimate because he was not married to her then, but really he was. He was only working retroactive. So because of that, he shouldn't be secluded with her. LP Adam, only if there's witnesses who are there testifying that they weren't intimate, then you could use that get, or else it becomes invalidated. And even with the testimony of a slave, it's enough that a slave should be with them, or maidservant. All these people could be there to make sure that they weren't secluded, and then you could use such a get. Except, even if there was another person around, so her maidservant, then that's not going to qualify, that's not going to permit them to use this old get. Why? Because she's very comfortable with her maidservant, and she'll have intimacy in front of the maidservant. And therefore she's not a valid deterrent for the utility of saying that they were not intimate, and therefore it's going to be forbidden to use that as a permission. So there seems to be a contradiction regarding her shifcha. On the one hand, our Mishnah makes it sound like that even her own shifcha is going to be valid to testify that she was not intimate. Whereas in the Mishnah in Mesechtas Gittin sounds like that no, her shifcha is not valid to testify such a thing, where she's not a deterrent. So what's the status with her shifcha? So the Gemara gives a few approaches. Omer Papi says that by the case of captivity they were lenient in general. Meaning, although this is not your classic shvuya, but in the halacha of our Mishnah, where they were conquered by these troops. So again, that's halacha that in general it's only a suspicion. So they were lenient, and they said yes, even her shivcha could testify and say yes, my mistress was not mizana. But in general, in the regular halacha, a husband and wife divorcing with a get, that no, she's not a qualified person to testify and say that they were not intimate. She is not valid because she's very obedient and very beholden to her mistress. That's one approach. But Papam says another approach. He says actually Mesechtas Gittin is actually b'shivcha dida. Yes, her own maidservant is not effective, and therefore should not deterrent and will not validate a get yasha. In our Mishnah is b'shivcha didei. Here it's actually, we're saying, when we said even there, when we're saying that, we're inferring that afila shivcha, whose shivcha? His shivcha. The husband's shivcha is going to be believed, but her own shivcha, you're right, would not be believed. Says the Gemara, "B'shivcha didola mehem." Is that really so that her own maidservant is not going to be believed in the halacha of our Mishnah to testify that she was not violated? Hakatani. But the words of the Mishnah were, the Mishnah ended off, "Ein od meid al atzma." The Mishnah said a person is not believed regarding themselves that they weren't violated. But the inference is, "Shivcha didola mehem." It sounds like that anyone else, even her own maidservant, is going to be believed. So that seems to be a contradictory answer that we gave. Says the Gemara, no, because shivcha nami ka'atzma dami. Her maidservant is like herself. She's so bold and she's so secondary to the mistress that the halacha that says that she herself is not believed is including her shivcha. When we're saying after the shivcha that is believed, it means shivcha dida. But you're right, shivcha dida would be like the Mishnah Gittin that she would not be believed. Now, a third approach, Rabbi Shloimy says, to resolve the contradiction between our Mishnah and the Mishnah Mesechtas Gittin regarding the halacha of a shivcha, her own shivcha, says the Gemara, Havaha, really both Mishnahs, our Mishnah Mesechtas Gittin are b'shivcha dida. They're both talking about her own maidservant. Now, the reason then to resolve the contradiction, that in our Mishnah we say that she is believed, and over there we say she's not believed, is because, as for the following reasoning, is that there's a difference because the shivcha, her own shivcha, mezzachazia, she's going to see the wrongdoing being done with her mistress, and vishaska, meaning in general, her lips are sealed. Me no speak, I don't say anything, that's the mistress she sees and I don't tell. So now it's going to have a ramification in how to explain our Mishnah Mesechtas Gittin. Hasam over there by the law of the get, dishtikasa matirasa, her silence is a permitter, because she doesn't have to testify that she was not intimate. She just has to say, I was there. So you say, were you there? I was there. So, but she doesn't have to say anything more, because any other person being present is generally a permitter. So that's what it's saying, loy mehemna. She's not believed that the woman should be permitted by her saying, I was there, because even if she saw, she wouldn't say. So your silence is not going to permit, because your silence, if you saw something, you wouldn't say. In contrast, over here, Hacha, by the Shvuya, Dishtikasasa, her silence of the maidservant is Oisrasa. It makes her mistress prohibited, because as long as someone doesn't come along and testify explicitly that she's Tahira, we actually presume with a Chazaka that she's Tameya. So when she comes and testifies and says that she's Tahira, Mehemna, she's going to be believed. Why? As the Gemara is going to explain, because to explicitly lie, that's not normal. She would be quiet. Say, I'm not saying anything. So that's what she'll do. But to come out and say, yes, she was not mezana, she wouldn't do that. So in our Mishnah, to permit her, and that's what we're saying, afila shivcha, even her own shivcha is believed, because to say she didn't, she would never do that. And therefore she is believed. The Mishnah Gittin would say she's not believed because she's not saying anything. The not saying is usually permits, but that we're not going to permit based on that. But actually, the Gemara asks it as a question now. It says, wait a second, Hashtanami, here also then, since he's saying that she loves her mistress, or she's afraid of her, whichever one, Asiyu Meshakra, she's going to lie, she'll say she was Tahira. Why are you saying you believe her? What do you mean, why? Maybe she'll say, oh yeah, I was with her the whole time, and really she was raped by the soldiers, but she'll say, oh, she wasn't. Says the Gemara, no. Tarti lo avda. Two things she's not going to do, meaning, one, to be quiet regarding what happened to her, and also to come and explicitly say a lie that she wouldn't do it. The Gemara says, Ki hadam ori bar Isak. Some say it was Chana bar Isak. Asla Acha, he had a brother that came, Mibei Chayzah, meaning his father had gone there many years before, and one of his sons, the brother, had gone with him, and he grew up over there. Then the father passed away, and now that son comes back to the hometown, and he's claiming his rights in his father's estate. Somebody says, politely, divide with me the assets of Tati because I'm your brother. Somebody says to him, I don't know who you are. So also came to Rav Chizda. So Rav Chizda said to that brother, Shabbat Kamalach, he's tithing very good to you. He doesn't recognize you because you left without a beard. Now you come back with a long beard, there's a big, like a Reish Koil looking guy. Who's this guy? Last he saw him was 6 years old, some punk with some, who he doesn't know you. He says in the Pasuk in Bereshit, but Yaakov says that when Yaakov recognized his brothers, because when he left them, they already had their beards. But it said, they didn't recognize him, because Malama teaches Shiyotza B'li Chasim Azaken. He left without a beard. But Baba Chasim Azaken comes back with his big bar, with a big grace of Bekasher, with a big Streimel, who knows, who's this guy? We don't recognize him. Back in the Brooklyn, we used to see him. He was like, with knickers and whatever. So he says, of course, he could say he doesn't know who you are. Amalei said to him, Zil Aisi Sahad Yachwat, says, go bring witnesses that you're a brother. Amalei says, look, Isli Sahad, I have witnesses who know the whole thing, the story of my father going to this other town, but I'm mistafinim in it. They're afraid of him, my brother, because the Gavra Lamahu, he's a mobster, and this guy, if they say they're going to break his knees and they're going to throw him into the Hudson Rivers, he says they don't want to testify for me, then I'm a brother, because I'm coming to divide this big empire and I want to get a portion. They're afraid. Similarly today, so if Chizah said to Mari, Zil, it sounds like a Mari type, Zil Aisinu you go bring those witnesses that recognize him, let them testify for you, the lavachachu, that he's not your brother. So Mari said to him, Dina Hachi, that's the law? The one who's trying to extract, he has to bring the proof. I have to bring those witnesses and have them testify for me in court that he's not my brother? Amalei, so Rav Chizda said to him, yes, that's how I'm going to judge for you, and all your mobster friends. That's the standard I'm going to do. But that's the story. The question is, but Hashtanami. But even now, since they're so afraid of Mari, Asu Mashakri, they're going to come, they're going to lie. They can get up and stand and says, yes, we don't know, we don't recognize, he's not a brother. If you're saying they're afraid, so what's the point? What did Rav Chizda want to accomplish by making Mari bring the witnesses? So the Gemara says the same idea. Tarti loyavdi. Two things they're not going to do. Meaning, one, to be quiet and not say the truth. Another one, to say false testimony. One they'll do. They won't say anything. But to come and say something exactly the opposite of the truth, that people won't do. And therefore Rav Chizda was intimidating Mari with that requirement. And again, that's like where the Rav Ashi answered to differentiate between the two Mishnayos. The way he resolved the contradiction, do we believe Shivcha Dida or not? It depends. When a Shivcha Dida, if she's going to be silent, for that we don't trust. Because yes, she'll say, I see no, hear no evil, see no evil, I'm not saying anything. Right? But that's the Mishnah Masechtas Gittin. So then we're not going to believe you. But in our Mishnah, it's not enough to say nothing. We're assuming every woman was defiled. We need somebody to come along and say that she was not defiled. That the Shivcha would not do, and therefore if she does say, then actually we would believe her because she wouldn't say that lie. Says Gemara, let's say her maidservant, if we believe her or not, which we were having this discussion regarding how we're interpreting and resolving the contradiction of Mishnah. Let's say it's a machlokes tanoim, where we have the following brisa that says, Zu Edis, this is a testimony, meaning this testimony of a shvuya, of the captive woman, which is not just necessarily captivity, it's any type of situation where the non-Jews come and they take control over a woman if we are suspecting that she was defiled. So everyone is valid to say this testimony. Ish, Isha, a man or a woman, Tinnik, V'tinekis, a boy or a girl, a Via, V'ima, her father, her mother, V'chem, V'chlisa, her brother, her sister, Aval, Lebna Bita, but not her son nor her daughter, L'avda V'shevchasa, not her slave and nor her maidservant. That's one brayse. Another brayse, Hakol Neman L'hoy. Everyone is believed to testify. Chutz mehemna, except for herself, Ubala, and her husband. So the Gemara qualifies when we wanted to say some machlokes tanoim. So the Gemara explains as follows: Did Rav Papi or did Rav Ashi that they had both said before that her maidservant is believed regarding how they resolved the contradiction? We had three approaches how to resolve the contradiction. Rav Papi had said shvu yekili. Rav Ashi had said that it depends regarding one you have to be quiet and one you have to say something. According to them, that they said that her maidservant is believed. For sure, Tanoi, you have to say it's a machlokes Tanoi. In other words, they obviously have to say that we say like the second brayse, because the first brayse is definitely difficult on them. because the first brisa says explicitly that lo yavda and shevchasa. They said, oh, shevcha is believed. And they resolved the contradiction from Mishnah Masechet is getting a different way. But regarding the halacha of shvuya, they said, yeah, shevcha is nemenis. So they obviously have to say it's machlokes tanan because the first brisa says it's not like that. But the question is, did Papa? He was the middle answer the Gemara gave. How to resolve? He said, Mishnah says getting shivcha di da, and our Mishnah is shivcha di de. But Papa said that we actually don't believe our maidservant. Our Mishnah is saying we believe the maidservant is only his maidservant, not her. Do we have to say according to Papa that it's a machlokes tanan? In other words, that do you have to say? Can you say that he's going to push and he's going to say no? That I could even be like the first brisa, or do you have to say that, or could he say that the second brisa is also like him? How can the second brisa be like him? I thought he says that the maidservant is not believed. The second brisa makes it sound like that only the woman herself is not believed or her husband, but everyone else is believed. Maybe you could say that we had said before, her shivcha is like herself, and therefore it's included except for herself, or some other answer. So that's the question. According to the other two answers that the Gemara given, we have to say it's machlokes tanan. But according to Papa, do we have to say that, or could we say he's like both? So Papa will tell you, yes, I could be like both. Because Kitan Yahi, when did we learn that brisa, which said everyone is believed, which the inference is even her own maidservant. She's the only one who's not believed, and her husband. You know when that's going to be the case? I thought you said, Rav Papa, that the maidservant is not believed. So I'm saying everyone is believed, just not herself. Yes, that's the Mesech Lefi Tuma. That's when she's innocently talking. The maidservant was talking about the story, what happened, the horrors of the pogrom. And then she said, and I was with my mistress the whole time. Oh, then we're going to believe her. So generally you don't believe her. But when did the second verse say we're going to? Is Mesech Lefi Tuma, when she was innocently talking about the story. When he said that Rav Chanan Kartigno Mishtoi, Rav Chanan from Kartigi was saying over the story that Maisabol of Rabbi Shloimy Levi, the story came from Rabbi Shloimy Levi, some say Rabbi Shloimy Levi Mishtoi, Rabbi Shloimy Levi was saying over the story that Maisabol of Rabbi, but there was a person that was innocently saying, and he said, he says, me and my mother, Nishbinu, we were taken in captivity, amongst the idol worshippers. I went out to draw water, and whenever I went out to draw water, I was thinking about my mother. I went together with I was thinking about my mother. I was always paying attention what was going on with my mother. And he was just saying over the story. Rebbe went and married her off for kahuna based on what he's saying, meaning that we were able to ascertain that there wasn't even nenas, because he was always thinking about his mother. You see, because Masech B'tumah we believe, although generally we don't believe his son. But here we did because it was Masech B'tumah. That's the halacha of Shivcha. Say right. Generally, Shivcha Republic is going to say he's like the first brisa that we don't believe. But the second brisa says we do believe is by Masech Lefi Tuma. Okay, fingers at the time.